Was brought to you in honor of Black Aragorn. Representation does not need to be in everything. Representation in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing to a certain extent, but only when it's done properly. And when you race bend a character, you are not properly utilizing representation and diversity. Using already existing minority characters or creating new minority characters is the proper way to have representation and diversity in whatever project it is that you are putting out there. But when you race bend the character, what you are doing is saying that you have no faith in already existing minority characters, nor do you have faith in creating new minority characters, or you're just creatively bankrupt and can't create new minority characters. And it also states that you have to rely on the popularity and the notoriety of the already existing character in order to attempt to get your tokenized version of that character over. But as I said at the beginning of the video, you don't need representation in everything. Not every story needs to reflect the world that you live in your little pocket of the world, or the world that you fantasize about having. There are places in the world where certain ethnic groups are the majority and the vast majority. There are pockets in the world where there are majority of white people. There are pockets in the world where there are majority Asian people, pockets of the world where there are majority black people, majority Samoan people, majority Hispanic people. But the only time where people want to balance in representation in terms of ethnicity is when it results in stories that feature white characters, such as Lord of the Rings here. In the World of Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, the majority of the characters are white. That's not a bad thing. That's just the way it is, given the time that Tolkien grew up and the area that he was surrounded in and what he saw and what he was familiar with. And just because it was, quote unquote, a different time, doesn't mean that it is okay to sit here and make changes of it to, quote unquote, fit the modern world. But this need for diversity and representation, like I said, only applies to white creations. It doesn't apply to any other creations. For example, if you had a story that was a Chinese story based off Chinese lore set in China, you're not going to have people sit there and say, well, there are too many Chinese people in this story. We need some representation. We need more black people here. We need more Hispanic people in this story. So let's just race bend these Chinese characters to be black and Hispanic. They won't do that. You take a story about, let's say, Black Panther 2 Wakanda Forever, and, I didn't hear anybody hollering about, why aren't there more Samoans in Wakanda? We need that Samoan representation in Wakanda, because it's not about that. Representation only matters when it concerns properties that feature white characters. And it's been stated time and time again, if you want representation and diversity, create new minority characters, use already existing minority characters, and most importantly, utilize those characters properly and the right way. Promote the characters for who they are, not what they are. And if you have to mention the character's race or, sexuality or things of that nature in your promotion, you've already lost. You're already doing it wrong. You're already relying on a box check rather than a character attribute. And it shows that you either have an agenda, you're creatively bankrupt, or a combination of both. And when you say you want things to represent the modern world, what you're really saying is that you want things to represent your idealized version of what you feel the modern world should be, or the small pockets of the modern world in which you live in. But the world is a vast place where most major ethnic groups in certain pockets of the world are the majority ethnic group. And it's okay to tell stories that reflect that, because you don't need diversity and representation in everything. Of course, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I'm not. So like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the flip side.